All right. I believe this means we just might be live. It was like I was waiting for my video to click back over. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, a.k.a. some gadget guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series. But the QA is the important part. Stands for question and answer, obviously. We like to make this an interactive conversation, get our week started right. We like to kind of sit with news for the past week, just kind of see what we feel about what's going on in the world of tech and gadgets and geekery and sometimes tech politics. We do have some FCC stories we got to cover. But we want to do more than just read a headline on a social media site and get outraged and then get on with our lives. We want to figure out what's going on with this stuff. And that's why I like to have my show on a Monday, or maybe also some news broke over the weekend. It's been known to happen. Already seeing a great group of faces here in the chat. Bradley Lurcher, we got Jimmy Fire Dragon, Georgie, Ron Guido, Simon says Hypno, Vazikos, Dr. Claw. Time for the impoopification report. Spot on. There is a lot of impoopification in the news this week. Hey, folks. Hope everybody out there had a lovely weekend. We had serious downtime. Like, I hit Saturday and I kind of just shut down. And I really appreciate, like, Marie was like, hey, you need to take a day and like handled Lex and stuff. And then Sunday we went and finally we got to go see Fantastic Four. And I thought it was fine. Like it's interesting. Like, I think it's a good movie. But it just feels very much in keeping with the current tradition of Marvel cinema that we finished the movie and we all kind of like, yeah, that was pretty good. The production design is amazing. The cast is phenomenal. I really like the cast. But ultimately, the story was fine. And you're like, oh, for how much money we just spent to go watch this movie? I was hoping for something a little more. We can save that later. I know I wrote up an actual review of the Superman movie. I'm considering whether or not I want to write a review of Fantastic Four. Do you guys care what I say, what I think about movies and TV shows and stuff? I can start adding more reviews, maybe to the Patreon. It's hey folks, here's an old film that I really like. You should see it too. Hooray! But no, the weekend was really nice. Spent some time just getting a little kind of recharge the batteries, get set for a new week. Man, just projects keep lining up, and I felt like I'd have a bit more time to kind of wrap up the summer and get more stuff out. And I am consistently being disavowed of that notion. We do have some housekeeping to take care of, though. I just kind of want to hear real quick some of these comments. Steve's Webb is saying good morning from Oklahoma. Oh, Oklahoma, where the wind is sweeping down the plains. Omar Salam, your old subscriber. Greetings from Iraq. Hey, Omar. Good to see you in the chat. From Ankuro, I can't believe Samsung and Apple is regressing by making thin phones without using silicon carbon batteries. Now they're stuck with less than 4,000 milliamp batteries now. Absolutely horrible decision. I'll be curious what people think. One of the big stories this morning was yet another round of leaks for the Pixel Fold 10 Pro. Pixel 10 Pro Fold. I really don't like that name. I'll be curious what people's thoughts are when we see what these leaks entail. Or is there news there? Is there actually meat on those bones of Pixel 10 Pro leaks anymore? We'll chat it out at the end of the show, because I'm seriously debating my strategy on whether or not I'm going to seriously cover Pixel 10 in any grand capacity. Yeah, and Jimmy Fire Dragon is also saying same with Google and those batteries. From Georgie, yep, I still think the first Avengers movie was the peak of Marvel. The rest just went a bit downhill. And I was talking to Lex, like, where we're coming in on Marvel supervillain big bads is really interesting, because like Thanos, I don't know that the plan was always to do Thanos the way they did Thanos, but Thanos was a creation 10 years in movies to get to that point. And it feels like this phase of Marvel was, well, it was going to be Kang, and then it wasn't. Bradley Larcher. Juan's review. I sat through this movie so you don't have to. I am not saying that about Fantastic Four. In the scheme of Marvel cinema right now, it's one of the better Marvel films that's been made of recent memory. I just feel it's fine. And I don't know that people want to spend a lot of money on fine. I think if you hold off and you wait for it to come to streaming, or even if you want to kick it some cash and you rent it, like from like a premium streaming solution when it first comes to streaming, that's still cheaper than what the three of us spent on movie tickets. That's the issue that I have. Is it Superman felt like kind of a grand spectacle, even for the plot being a recycle. The plot of Superman is a remake of a previous Superman film. This Fantastic Four, I don't know. I'm gonna write out my thoughts. I'm gonna do a Fantastic Four review. It'll be on the Patreon probably tomorrow. From Simon Says Hypno, apart from the battery, it's much of a muchness for the 10 Pro Fold. Vazikos is saying, wrapping up, Infinity War was best. Ron Guido, sometimes grown-upping isn't fun. That is also correct. And Simon Says Hypno, Quantum Mania was an LSD-inspired hellscape. So, we have a lot of news to get through, and I actually do have a pressing engagement at the end of my normal block for this show. So I can't go 3 hours like we did last week. We did a 3-hour show last week, y'all. So I definitely want to get in and cover some news. I have some housekeeping. There's some weird things happening with my scheduling. When you start doing projects and you've got to get approvals, and I have a sponsored video that I'm kind of sitting on, that sucks up a lot more time. So any minute that I might spend on doing something else, I have to do emails and get approvals, and it's so much more work. You would think like, oh, well, you're gonna do a sponsored video. It's the same process of making a video, except it's an order of magnitude more work and waiting and delay. So just to jump into a little housekeeping here, let me screen share this. A lot of the stuff is going to be on the Patreon, unfortunately, just because we're in kinds of holding patterns for this kind of stuff. So we have a sneak peek. A part of a sponsored Chromebook video is in early access, talking about Lenovo and maybe an interesting chip inside that Chromebook laptop. Then I finally did get this video out, and this video is public, and the 4K version is on Patreon. Geekom A6, a powerhouse mini PC, now in pink. My daughter really wants this computer because it is a lovely, rich, a little purple in that pink. It's not like a cotton candy pink. It's a very rich, a little bit of plum, if you will. I'm bad at color. I was an audio guy. I wasn't a lighting guy in theater. But a monster powerful little PC for the price. I've had great experiences with Geekom products, and this is also interesting. Just it costs a company a lot of money to tool up a chassis and start offering different colors. So if Geekom standardizes on this type of PC shell, it would be really cool if we could start seeing more color options. So if all of their AMD PCs fit the same form factor, maybe we could get blue and green, and you could just swap the shell. Maybe they could even sell the shells separately. You can pop this shell off your original silver mini PC and put on a pink shell. I think stuff like that would be really interesting, and I'm just kind of curious if people care, like if the computer on your desk is in a different color. Moving right along. Just a little production diary. SteamOS is alive! It's alive! And if you notice in this photo, for those of you watching the video or watching the video replay, there's a silver Geekom on my desk, but there seems to be SteamOS running on this monitor. And that's weird, because that Geekom came with Windows 11. But I have Steam, well actually, technically it could just be Steam in big picture mode. right? Because that's very similar to SteamOS. I'm telling you right now. Basically, I flashed SteamOS on a Geekom. I'm following the grand tradition of a bunch of other YouTubers who did this like 2 months ago. But I'm in this production diary, this behind the scenes look at my process. I had some teething pains. I'm still saying this is probably the closest we've gotten yet to Linux being this great backbone operating system gaming experience. What the Steam Deck has brought is really encouraging if you're looking for a good living room gaming experience. But let me tell you, because I've played with, but I haven't lived with the other Windows-based handheld portable game consoles. They don't really interest me. I don't want Windows on something that's supposed to be streamlined, quick, easy, pick up, play a little bit, put it back down. Putting that kind of experience on a mini PC where I could control it from a controller in my living room is a lot more compelling. And the significant jump in horsepower from the little Steam Deck chip to the really beefy laptop chip that I have in this mini PC is a lot more fun. And then lastly, let me just kind of pop this in here. This will probably be going live Tuesday or Wednesday. Ooh, excuse me, I could not catch that burp. Tuesday or Wednesday on the public channels. GameSir Game Hub. We spent a lot of time last week at the end of the show talking about PC gaming emulation. This video kicked my butt. This was a really hard video to put together. But what I wanted to see, because again, it's not news. GameSir, the Game Hub app has been out for a little while and it's been covered. I mean, like, I think a bunch of YouTubers have covered it. Even like, I think ETA Prime talked about it. And it's been getting kind of milk toast reviews. I think someone who looks at this and sees, oh, but it wasn't perfect and there was like a little bit of a bug and I don't know, it's just, you know, like mobile gaming sucks. And it's so exhausting because this is a massive step in the right direction. But I wanted to take a look at it now because the update is out for improved support on MediaTek chips. So my video isn't just, hey, let's look at the GameSir Game Hub and can it play a PC game. I'm comparing the games that worked on both. Not all games work on both phones. But I'm comparing a top-of-the-line MediaTek chip against a top-of-the-line Snapdragon chip, and just I kind of think the results are interesting if you want better gaming performance on one side or the other, and how it's not consistent across all games. Some games play better on MediaTek, and some, actually, you would probably predict a lot more games play better on Qualcomm. So, lots. I mean, all of that. The Geekom A6 video is public. You can catch that on somegadgetguy.com or on my YouTube channel. But there's sort of a backlog of stuff that's going to be hitting pretty hard. And then we have to take a quick pause here just for a second. One Mr. Control Alt Clay subscribed with Prime on Twitch. They've been subscribed for 25 months, currently on a 1-month streak. Control Alt Clay, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. The subs on Twitch have changed recently, or some of their payouts. I got a bunch of updates, and I don't really read what Twitch sends me. I'm real bad at the Twitch, but it still is, I feel like, the side of this that's a little bit better for me to control, like, interactions and things like that. I wish I could just give up on YouTube, but no one wants to. Everyone wants to complain about YouTube, but no one wants to leave it. So Control Alt Clay, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. You get one acapella fanfare of glory. So, let me get this out of the way here. Oh, we actually have a couple comments. Nick Gay saying, you can skip the Pixel 10 for me. I'm not going to pay attention to it. And I guess I'll watch your video in TKs, but I'm not interested. Steve's Web, Marvel is much like new Android phones. Not much to talk about, just somewhat better graphics. Ha ha! Nick Gay, I want to see that Lenovo Chromebook laptop. It's pretty nice. It's a really nice bit of hardware there. Simon says, Hypno saying, is it like a fuchsia pink? And I I don't think it's fuchsia because it does have a metallic glint to it. You would think that, I thought, and especially looking at the photos on the Geekom website, it looks like it would be fuchsia, but there's like a little bit of plum. Again, it's like a little purpley. I don't think this is going to do it justice if I hold it up on camera now. Yeah, see, it's going to look real pale when I put it up on the light. See? Now it just looks kind of bubblegummy. But if I try and turn it, you can see it's not fuchsia. It's not electric. It's like pale, but with like a little hint of purple in there. So I keep coming back, because I'm real bad. Like I said, I'm terrible at color. I keep coming back to words like plum, purple, stuff like that. But it's a really nice color. And especially for it being a metal shell. It's not a plastic shell. Bradley Larcher, I'd buy it just for that color. The nice thing is I think at present, no, I think they changed it. When I was making the video, the pink A6 was actually a little cheaper than the silver A6. So for that snappy AMD, it's an AMD 6800H. That's a beefy, powerful laptop chip. The limited edition pink version was actually the cheaper way to buy. Nick A saying my daughter would love that pink. Oh, that's sad. Meanwhile, SteamOS died on Chromebook. SteamOS. Oh, no, we're going to talk about that. It's not SteamOS. Don't worry. You can still run SteamOS on a Chromebook if you can get it to run, but that's actually going to be a bigger problem. Sorry, there's a bunch. JGJ saying because of SteamOS, KDA is resurrecting their TV interface. It is a huge glaring hole. Microsoft, again, they keep doing things and then pulling the plug just before they actually realize success. Microsoft, way back in like the Windows XP days, we kept flirting with a Media Center edition. Control your computer from a simpler interface instead of needing a keyboard and mouse to control your computer. This is pretty straightforward. It's why consoles are as popular as they are. You don't have to pull out a keyboard and mouse to use a console on your TV. Nick Gay, I need to buy a couple of games for the PC to test more things out. I mean, the nice thing about PC gaming, especially if you're a patient gamer, if you buy some older games, you can hit Fanatical, you can hit Humble Bundle, you can get tons of PC games for very little dollars. As game prices are looking to start hitting $70, $80, $90, there's a rumor that the new Grand Theft Auto next year is probably going to be a $100 game. Sure. But, you know, you could also go buy RoboCop for $5. I'm just saying, will it give you the unending entertainment of a Grand Theft Auto? No. But for $5, I would get a ton more entertainment value out of RoboCop Rogue City than I would out of the Fantastic Four movie currently in theaters. That was a lot more expensive than RoboCop. It was more expensive for the three of us to see Fantastic Four yesterday than it was for me to buy RoboCop brand new at full retail. I didn't wait for a sale, and RoboCop was still cheaper than the three of us to see a movie. Yeah, see, Bradley Larcher, these same folks that say mobile gaming sucks would praise Apple for AAA games on the iPhone. And this is a major part of what I'm talking about in that GameSir Game Hub video. In fact, about half the video is unhinged rant. I mean, like, I watched myself editing myself, and I was kind of shocked where I ended up going on some of those parts. There's a 4-part rant at the end of that video. And about half the video is me being kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I'm just really not impressed with the state of techies and being futurists and really being into tech. And that's kind of a major part on it. Oh, John Gao also saying, hey, let me catch up on Twitch sub as well. I always forget. John also subscribed with Prime, subscribed for 16 months. You too also get one fanfare of glory, a cappella style. So one of the reasons why I've still yet not been able to finish fixing my audio setup is I'm kind of trying to make the most modular workstation environment that I can. Especially over the summer, my wall faces west, and in the afternoon, the office is uninhabitable. It's just way too hot with this workstation running, even with the AC on. It's kind of stifling in here. But I can get a lot of work done if I switch over to a laptop. And so I'm trying to create the most plug and play. It doesn't matter what computer I punch in, that I can keep the exact same working setup and maybe even sometimes have multiple computers working in this space. And I just have like, a little KVM switch or something like that too. But let me tell you, that gets real messy when you're talking about like a good capture card for a camera and good audio. That's been helped recently. Like my sound card now finally works on Windows on ARM. It is so nice going from a huge monster workstation with tons of fans to a tiny little laptop that's pulling like 30 watts, 40 watts when it's under moderate load. Oh, that is so much different in here. I love doing everything on the laptop. Unfortunately, my workstation is just so much faster at rendering out video. So it's going to be a little while. I need to fix the modularity of this setup first, and then I think I can get back to fixing audio and plugins and stuff like that. But for now, you just get me embarrassingly celebrating with a cappella fanfares. It's not great. Like I said, I'm real bad at the Twitch. So, from Joshua Luther, I'd love to be able to play some older DOS games that I grew up playing 30 years ago. One, it's honestly not that hard. Two, a lot of those DOS games can be played in browser. I don't have time to do a deep dive on that concept, but I will point you towards things like archive.org. I reviewed recently. I reviewed a smart chessboard. So it's a physical chessboard, and you can play chess, but it also can sync it up with your online chess accounts like Lichess, and you can play games of chess opposite other people, and it lights up to show you where moves are going and stuff. But to demonstrate part of like software for chess and AI for chess, I grabbed some footage of Battle Chess, the old DOS Battle Chess, and I played that in browser. So Joshua, if you want to revisit some old DOS stuff, there's a huge amount of content and a huge amount of software out there. You don't even need to install anything. JGJ's right. You can hit FreeDOS. FreeDOS will get you up and running too. But if you just want to poke around, I mean, your browser is a more sophisticated computer system interface environment than DOS was. And you can run DOS in a browser, and it's pretty good. So anyway, one more here. JMan150 subscribed at tier 1, subscribed for 27 months. You too also get everybody, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. There's been a lot going on, and the channel is in an interesting place right now. So I love like the people who show up. We have these conversations. The people who share content, that's critical right now because algorithms are stomping on all of our stuff while they're ripping us off. The AI is ripping us off while the algorithm makes sure we don't get any audience. But just knowing that you guys are wanting to keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab means a lot to me. So I very much appreciate the support. J-Man, I can't believe it's already been nearly 2.5 years. Right? It's pretty crazy. So we have a lot to get through and not a lot of time. Everything that we're going to be talking about this week is going to be on the show notes for this week's episode, a blog post on somegadgetguy.com. Of course, we're also going to have the audio and video replays. You can catch those publicly. And if you want the sort of more cut down, I clean up the Patreon version of the audio show a little bit more. Like I cut out my coffee sips, and I don't put in those like bumpers or site plugs or ads or anything like that. So the replay, the podcast audio replay on Patreon is different than the public feed. Really just a thank you to all the people that are supporting there over on the Patreon. Patreon.com/somegadgetguy. So we're gonna jump into, I mean, again, it's a story from John Brodkin. So he's my man crush over at Ars Technica. It's the FCC. If there's relevant FCC news, I feel it's worth covering, even though right now, lately, it's been soul crushing to see the return of regulatory capture. People who should not be in charge of regulators being in charge of a regulating commission in our government, making life terrible for everybody. But this one's kind of interesting, and I want you to read the whole article. So I'm not going to sum up the entirety of this article here. That's what I do for a lot of these, is I want you to go and support human beings who are creating or who are writing articles and producing videos, and not just rely on AI summaries, not just listen to me read the article at you. They need the traffic. I need the traffic. If you want to see this stuff continue, it has to be rewarded in some way. That's how this goes. Especially there's a fear that Bezos might buy Condé Nast. If that happens, that's real bad for us, because Ars Technica will probably be neutered if Bezos buys Condé Nast. So, John Brodkin, writing, net neutrality advocates won't appeal loss, say they don't trust the Supreme Court. Excuse me. Advocacy groups that tried to defend federal net neutrality rules in court won't file an appeal, saying they don't trust the Supreme Court to rule fairly on the issue. Net neutrality rules were implemented by the FCC during the Obama era, repealed during Trump's first term, and revived under Biden. Telecom lobby groups challenged the Biden-era restoration of net neutrality rules and beat the FCC at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. Now, if you remember, a couple months back, we played audio of that deliberation, lawyers arguing before the court, and they got bogged down in the minutia of words describing the differences between an information service and a telecommunication service. And they seemed to hinge a lot of their arguments on, because information can be changed or manipulated, the internet is an information service, not a telecommunication service, and therefore it should not be regulated like telephone lines. The practical arguing of that is horrifically disappointing, because we live in an era where the internet is the backbone for other services like telephony now. If you go and get a new telephone line, chances are really good you're not getting a copper line in your house that has that analog transmission of information over that line. Is that you're just getting a web phone that plugs into your cable modem. So the entire infrastructure of our communication, healthcare, education, entertainment is the internet. But lawyers convinced this court that because of language like manipulation or changing or augmenting of information, that the internet is an information service. That is horrifically cynical, is a really bad faith take on the practical application of telecommunication services, and now we're stuck. So yet again, we're playing these games with words, and it seems to be a very common conservative tactic, where we take a word and then we just sort of debate its meaning until the rest of the conversation is exhausted. And that's what won over this court case, was arguing about information versus telecommunication. There is no reason why the internet should not be regulated like a utility if we're going to depend on it like a utility. But that's an unlearned non-lawyer's opinion on what this stuff means. It's real stupid. I hate it so much. So I want you to read John Brodkin's article, because it is extremely well cited. Lots of links. Again, it's going to be a little bit to chew through, just the order of events that have kind of transpired to bring us here. But I feel this is going to be a growing sentiment for a number of people in situations where the outcome of a court case can really matter, because the conservatives don't care about precedent until it matters to them. They only care about precedent in one direction, if it validates some bad faith take on a piece of law. And now I feel a number of advocacy groups are gleaning that. If I take this case before the Supreme Court, there is very little evidence to suggest it's going to get a fair hearing. And that's exactly what this presidential administration wanted by stacking the Supreme Court the way they did. So, not a major part of this article. After recent conversations with with people like the folks over at US Perg, I have an interview with Lucas Gutterman and an interview with Nathan Proctor. Both of those interviews indicate that the way forward is not federal, it's not top down. If we want to affect change on terrible policy like hack regulators now working for the telecommunications industry that they're supposed to be regulating, we need to work bottom up. We need to work from cities, we need to work from states, and now net neutrality, there's the potential for 50 different net neutrality rules in this country. If you were against net neutrality, you were kind of dumb, because a loose, overarching federal standard from a largely toothless commission like the FCC would have just been light touch regulation over this industry. Now, let's say you live in Texas and you hate net neutrality. Well, who's going to decide the rules for that? There's way more people in California and New York than there are in all of the flyover red states. So now, if California and New York put in really strict rules on net neutrality, that's going to influence policy across the country. Because companies do not want to deal with 50 different flavors of compliance. So that's the future for net neutrality. We take it to the states, we get good laws enacted in all the blue states, and then we'll actually fix things for people in all the red states. And it's so exhausting having to come at every problem sideways like this, dragging those people kicking and screaming into the 20th century, let alone into the current modern era. Yeah, Bradley Larcher. Speaking of telephone lines, had no idea dial-up still existed. I showed Marie that story. I didn't put it in this week's lineup. But AOL is finally canceling their dial-up service because no one has copper phone lines anymore. Don't you see? The internet is a telecommunication service, not an information service. And the courts have consistently gotten this wrong because all they're doing is giving more money to massive corporations. I don't want to improve broadband because then that would cost Verizon money. Comcast doesn't want to give me a faster upload speed, so we'll make the definition of broadband whatever Comcast can already do. I don't understand why people keep fronting for, I support the terrible policy enacted by billion-dollar corporations. That makes me happy. Let me take a drink of coffee. We're done with this story. We've got to move on. Read the article. Again, if you don't keep up with what's happening by all of this policy that's being crafted and argued in courts, then basically rich people and megacorps get to decide how you live your life. If someone just said to you, an executive at Comcast gets to say what you do on the internet, you would go, no, I'm a sovereign individual. Yeah, that's it. You would not be happy. But the fact that I say, hey, pay attention to the FCC, you're like, oh, politics. I don't know. It was liberals. Blah, blah, blah. I can't believe AOL still existed. We've got one more from Ars Technica, and this is just rolling out. So I'm gilding this lily. Let me screen share and we can go right into talking about this. Written up by Ashley Bellinger, AI industry horrified to face largest copyright class action ever certified. Copyright class actions could financially ruin the AI industry, trade group says. AI industry groups are urging an appeals court to block what they say is the largest copyright class action ever certified. They've warned not a single lawsuit raised by 3 authors over Anthropic's AI training now threatens to financially ruin the entire AI industry if up to 7 million claimants end up joining the litigation and forcing a settlement. Maybe you shouldn't have ripped off human authors. Maybe you shouldn't have just taken all of the information on the internet for free to enrich your own position. You see, I'm not a lawyer, but I have read so much on copyright. We started, one of the first web things I did before I was really into tech commentary is a friend of mine and my wife, the three of us produced a movie review show. And the rules were incredibly vague with what to do about using pieces of media, copyrighted media, in a web presentation. We were at the very beginnings of this kind of trend. We beat red letter media to talking about certain movies. Like, for a while, we were one of the biggest movie review shows on the web, but because we weren't on YouTube, because YouTube would just give us copyright strikes, all of that vanished. We were on Mevio and we were on Blip, two web streaming services that no longer exist, and there's no archive for that existence. So when you look up copyright, when you look up commentary and critique, there is a good faith legal argument that if you're not trying to betray the media you're talking about, then you actually have a bit more leeway on making a commentary argument. So a review that tells you everything in the movie, spells out every plot point, and then gives up the ending is not a review. It should not be protected by commentary, because what that is doing is it's trying to replace or supplant the original media. So if I tell you everything that happens in a movie, and then he says this, and then she goes like that, and then this happens, and I was like, whoa, and then the ending is a big twist. Like, I'm actually trying to get you to watch my video, and it's less likely you're going to go and watch the original media that inspired my video. So that's actually not organically protected by commentary and critique. That's not a fair use of that media. So in training all of our AIs on all of this stuff, we're not creating new output. We're creating these patterns of words that can mimic what other authors have done. But we're not really transforming that media. We're not really transforming that content. There is not a good, fair use argument to be made, because also AI cannot be its own individual or copyrighted author. You can't copyright the work of an entity like an AI. If the photographer who set up a camera and let a monkey touch the shutter button, and we got that brilliant photo of that monkey, if that photographer can't copyright his work in buying cameras, setting them up, pointing them in a particular direction, and leaving some kind of trigger accessible to the ape, that's all that photographer's work. But the monkey pushed the shutter button, so he can't copyright it. If you can't copyright a photo because monkey pushed the shutter, you can't copyright the output of an AI that sucked up all of the human language. So this whole notion like, oh no, we're going to be financially ruined. You should not have trained your AIs on other people's work. I have zero sympathy. I have zero Fs to give. Actually, no, I do have the push F to pay respects F, but I have no of the PG-13 Fs or rated R Fs to give. I hope they get broken. At this point, AI seems to be entrenching the worst aspects of the business models that were already unsustainable. Like the stuff that I think about business reform, financial reform, all of the things that would be better in tech if they didn't happen, it's the exact opposite of the system that is trying to be made out of LLM style AI. Cloud data centers and wrecking electricity and consuming fresh water and all the things that are going to kill our species and ruin the planet seem to be entrenched in this flavor of AI. So yeah, I hope it takes huge chunks out of this industry. I hope it hurts so many of these companies. If Facebook can go before a judge and say, it's okay when we steal 80 terabytes of books. We didn't pay for all the books that we trained our AI on. We took them from BitTorrent, but we tried to minimize how much we shared the books while we were stealing them. So that means we didn't really steal them and redistribute them. It's okay when we do it because we're Facebook. But if I, as JC Bagnell, went out there and said, no, no, you see, Judge, I downloaded all of these movies for free. Not like I'm trying to rebuild my shiny plastic disc collection behind me right now. No, 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 no. I downloaded them all for free, but I tried to share them very little. While I was downloading them, I just set my upload speed really low. I would be fined into oblivion. But Facebook is allowed to say, no, it's totally different when we steal 80 terabytes of ebooks. I got a little spicy. I got a little hot under the collar there. John Gao, financially ruining the entire AI industry sounds pretty sweet to me. I'm good. I am ready to ride that ride. Let's do it. Because again, I think there's something interesting in LLMs. I'm still playing around with my little Wanbot. It still gets almost everything wrong when I ask it point blank questions about the decade plus of writing that I fed it. But it's fun. It's interesting to see the word combinations kind of come out in real time, the patterns, the models. Sure. It is not going to be the next phase of computing. This is yet another investor rug pull that just looks exciting because it forces big tech companies to spend a lot of money on hardware. And that's good for the economy. But we could be doing anything else with that electricity, and it would be a net benefit to humanity right now. Ron Guido, AI can join AOL as far as I'm concerned. Let's hope that the lasting ramifications of AI are not as far reaching as AOL still offering 56K. At the end of this, what's hilarious and what's kind of sad, because we don't know how many people don't have access to broadband, AOL probably still delivered a functional benefit to people who might not have had other opportunities to get online. AI isn't doing that. AOL still might have been a more practical benefit to humanity. If someone was out in the middle of rural nowhere and had a copper phone line, they could still get 56K dial-up access and be a part of the online economy, sort of. It's like, at this point, if you made me pick, should we keep AOL around or keep AI around? I would still probably vote for the 56K modems for all the those poor souls living out in rural nowhere. It's so bad. Oh yeah, Joshua. I also heard a news report, not sure if it's accurate, that Ford is moving away from EVs and more towards gas and diesel vehicles. I wouldn't be surprised. Whether or not it's accurate, I'm sure there are a bunch of executives, because we're going to talk a little bit about Intel too. Again, it's next fiscal quarter thinking. That's what's going to doom the United States more than anything else, is this constant need to make line go up for investors playing stupid games with the stock market. So instead of having a longer term vision and really working to build something, you just say, well, I mean, we tried that one thing for 3 whole months and it didn't work. So now we got to retool. We got to change things up. We're done with the big, heavy political stories. I'm just kind of curious. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. What are your thoughts about video game to TV adaptations? Because I think right now we're actually in a pretty good place. I feel like the right play isn't to try and go video game to movie. Video games are longer, more involved, more interactive experiences, and I think the TV model has shown us a better path for what to do, especially with more story-driven and narrative games, but also, you know, something like Fallout. There isn't one core storytelling mechanic in Fallout. It's a role playing game where the player sort of defines the path of the experience. So when I saw this news, and this is coming by way of Notebook Check, written up by Alexis Stegman, a series based on the Far Cry license seems to be in preparation at FX. And I'm kind of curious because Far Cry is one of those where every installment is such a unique storytelling experience. Like, what Far Cry would you pick? Because I don't think we're going to jump directly to conservative compounds because right now that's dicey. Ooh, that would be politics in my video game TV show. I think instead we would want to see the politics of a country with brown people, not the politics of a country or a state or a city in the United States. Sorry, that was so messy. But I also want to ask. All right, so here's my pitch. I'm making a Fallout TV show. I finish the series, and then I go back and I give an alternate ending. Y'all see where I'm going with this? So let's say it's a 10 episode arc and follows the player running around and shooting bad guys and trying to get resources and stuff like that. But then at the very end of the series, after the last final credits have rolled, there's a 90-second alternate ending where from the setup at the very beginning, if the protagonist had just said, "No, I don't want to fight," that the entire thing could have been resolved peacefully. And if they do that, that would make me so happy. Because, to me, that would be the ultimate video game TV show Easter egg. But here's what could have happened: you just walk away and nobody dies. that the entire 10 episodes of television that you just watched were all because of a bad choice in one moment. But maybe the good guy still wins at the end. Maybe it's better that the good guy wins at the end, but it didn't have to go down that way. And it's one of the things that I've always loved about Far Cry is when you find one of those alternative trigger points. For one of them, it's like if you just stand in front of the villain at the very, very, very beginning and you just wait for 30 seconds of awkward silence, then the villain completely changes their plan, offers you this other side room, and then everything's totally groovy and nobody died. That to me is what I really hope. But I'd still what Far Cry would you pick for a TV series? Far Cry 3? Would they try and do the original Far Cry, the very first Far Cry? Is there a potential that maybe they could wink, maybe a couple little nods to a Crisis? In the Far Cry universe, there's this oh, and someone had this weird super armor thing, or oh, I think that guy just turned invisible. I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts on any of that might be, if there's any potential there for a Far Cry TV series. Because I feel like it's open-ended enough, you wouldn't have to worry about one particular plot, one particular storyline. You could kind of craft something Far Cry adjacent. But I really hope they come in with some wink or nod to the potential of an alternate resolution to that story, to that conflict. All right. Simon says Hypno saying Fallout was great. I really enjoyed it. Geet Madden. Arcane is one of my favorite shows ever, and I have never played League. That's really good. JGJ, similar to anime, TV, movie adaptations, it depends on the director and how much they care about the source material. Dragon Ball Evolution. See, again, I think video games are getting primed because it's sort of like comic book movies in the 90s. You can get away with ignoring a lot of source material if the game isn't very narrative heavy. Look at Twisted Metal. It's not a great TV show, but it's a fun schlocky TV show. Every episode is kind of a low budget horror dystopian schlocky setup. So Anthony Mackie. But there's no core group of passionate Twisted Metal fans who really care about the lore so much that that's why they're watching Twisted Metal. I cannot think of what the story was in Twisted Metal, probably because I was on more mind altering substances in that era of my gaming experience when Twisted Metal was a new game that you could play on a console. But I think you've got free reign to do whatever you want with the imagery of Twisted Metal. And that's what's making the show kind of charming, but also like, do you care? Do you really care that much about what the story is? So again, I think Far Cry is actually a brilliant pick because there have been so many different permutations of Far Cry. Oh yeah, Nick A is saying TV is the way. Game of Thrones really opened up the way of fantasy stories. Opened up the way fantasy stories are told. Movies of the '90s is what doesn't need to be repeated. Absolutely agree. And Simon says, Hypno, 100 hours of gameplay fits better into 10 hours of TV versus 2 hours of movie. There's a lot less that you need to abbreviate. So, moving on, here's another story that I'm not going to hold on to too much, but we were talking about the impoopification report, and instead of me trying to sum up how complicated this story has become yet again, I would, one, definitely check out the work of Tech Potato, Dr. Ian. Anytime you want to learn about silicon, you should absolutely be keeping up with his work. And then two, they've gotten into this sort of investigative journalism vibe over at Gamers Nexus, and I think you should reward some of that work with some viewership. So this just came out. Okay, so they published it this morning, Monday morning. It's already gotten over 100,000 views. Collapse, Intel is falling apart over at Gamers Nexus. And it's, well, how long is this video? I'm halfway through it, but I've been keeping up with all the other additional adjacent side stories. It's a 34-minute video, and it's kind of talking about the current state Intel is in, the potential avenues for success, and how I think we're all feeling it's kind of unlikely that Intel is going to dig themselves out of this pit with the current leadership that they have. Now, I couldn't fully explain my feelings on Intel. I couldn't fully describe why I felt it was such a bad idea to get rid of Pat Gelsinger, the CEO of Intel, when they dumped him. As we've seen this situation play out, I think it's becoming more and more clear that this short-term financial gain thinking is really at the heart of so much of the rot and corruption from these massive tech organizations. And if you told me even 5 years ago that Intel would be collapsing, like just cratering like a damaged souffle, I would have laughed. Like, yeah, AMD's never been more competitive, and I'm a big fan of ARM. I really love low power but high performance little chip things. And so AMD's APUs have always been more interesting to me. ARM chips have always been more interesting. I'm desperate to see RISC start building more momentum in this space. But that to me is the future. What Intel was doing is kind of a monolithic structure for PC computing wasn't as interesting. And then we got the MacBook, and that showed all of the problems that we've seen or we've been complaining about with Intel's current strategy for x86. So, so Pat Gelsinger was really betting the company on spending a lot of money to invest in bleeding edge technologies. And that if Intel could get back in the race against other manufacturers like TSMC, that would be the financial salvation of Intel. But you've got to actually do the work. And Pat Gelsinger's strategy was, this is going to hurt up front, but every day we don't do this, it's going to be more expensive to catch up the next day. So Pat's reign was sort of, I don't know what I want to say, but his tenure at Intel was sort of distracted by the fact that he was the CEO as older bad decisions were coming to market. So the couple years before he was CEO, Intel already had products in the pipeline. And those products were pretty uncompelling. So while he was visibly the face of Intel, the CEO of Intel, he was having to deal with the bad decisions of his predecessors. So then he dumps tons of money into infrastructure and investment, but then they kick him out before those products really start coming to market. And so the new Intel CEO seems to be more of the let's cut costs to make our stock look better kind of CEOs. And so all of that money that was getting poured into infrastructure and investment is now getting cut off. And that's not just, oh, well, we were going to come out with this new chip. It's we were breaking ground on new foundries, on new fabs, on new research centers, on new facilities. And now, well, maybe we'll just pull out. So all of the infrastructure, all of the jobs that would have gone to that area, all of the high tech tools that would have trained up new workforce, it's just going to go away. I know you had a deal with Intel that, you were going to subsidize this and taxpayers were going to pay for that, but tariffs are getting everybody out here, so I guess we're just going to stop. So all of that money's been spent, but now there's less likelihood that we're going to get the finished result of that investment. So if Intel kind of gives up on some of their strategies for the next generation of like really high tech, the bleeding edge, the really sexy stuff for making chips and components for other companies, if they can't find a buyer, a company says, hey, we want to make a chip with this kind of technology, and we're going to pay Intel money to make this chip for us. If they can't find those customers, then I think Intel is properly cooked. There will always be an Intel that exists in some capacity, even if the name is just sold off and carved up for parts. But it is shocking to see just how quickly this titan has completely fallen apart. When we're using words like collapse, it's apt. It's kind of accurate. And all of us along the way saying like, it didn't have to be this way. If Intel faced scrutiny, if Intel faced regulatory pressure, if Intel faced worse penalties for trying to rig the market for the types of chips that they sold, then we wouldn't be in this position today. We would actually have a healthier base, more competition, there'd be more players in this space, and we wouldn't be dependent. But we're getting to a point where TSMC is responsible for the vast majority of all of the premier technology components that are being fabbed. China is going to be nipping at their heels. Samsung is going to be a distant third place. And then who else do we go to for chips? If Intel craters and stops trying to compete at the high end of technology, all of our gadgets get more expensive. Every single time Qualcomm comes out with a new chip, they don't have a foundry to make it. They have to put in an order at TSMC. And TSMC can charge them whatever they want, because where else are they going to go? Are you going to go back to Samsung and have your phones like cook people in their pockets? Like, no. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 was an abomination, one of the worst chips ever made. You could go back to Samsung. We have a Samsung story about their next chip. It's not looking great, guys. It's looking real bad. We need some other kind of competition. I really feel Pat Gelsinger's strategy was the last best hope. I'm not saying it would have worked. It was a gamble. But going into the gamble and then just walking away from the table is a terrible metaphor. Sorry, I'm mixing my metaphors. Putting all the money into the investment and then walking away before the investment had a chance to realize is the stupidest thing I could think of for this company to do. So it's not looking great. I really do not believe Intel's current leadership has the savvy or the long-term commitment to pull Intel out of this problem. And something tells me Intel's current CEO, let's say he craters the company. He's still going to be a multimillionaire, and he's probably going to get picked up by some other company to be an executive for their company. We're going to keep rewarding all these people for terrible business decisions. But you know what? For that couple months, I mean, like after Pat Gelsinger left, Liputan, like he actually made the stock price go up. Maybe he's the kind of guy we need running our, R&D facilities. That's what they're gonna say. They're not gonna look at like, oh, well, yeah, this dude actually killed a whole bunch of initiatives that might have paid off. I can't say would have, and we should reward him with more millions of dollars. It's ludicrous. So anyway, watch the actual video from Gamers Nexus because they're far more eloquent putting together their script than me just rambling about it. But if you're a fan of technology, I would start feeling high anxiety about the vast majority of products being fabbed by TSMC, the political strife between the United States and China, and knowing that every single time we want to see better tech in our gadgets, it's going to come at substantially higher costs. Our hobby is about to get squeezed so hard. If you're into tech as lifestyle, I cannot understate how precious our position is right now and how bad it's probably going to get. It's going to get real bad. From JGJ, do you think the yearly refresh of devices is giving false expectations of new things every year? Should we have a hiatus on new phones until we know what's going on? I don't think we'll ever get a hiatus, but I think the problem is consumer education. Is it's not that we don't want to see new things every year, it's consumers have no idea what they're getting every year. But we can save that for, I might even make that a standalone editorial. If I put up two photos of cars just based on the visual cues of the car, the vast majority of consumers in America could probably point to one car and say that car gets better gas mileage and that car goes faster. Now, if I hold up two phones, we've not taught consumers what's really in their phones. They have no idea. If I hold up two phones and start showing you PC gaming on those phones, you have an entire army of ruthlessly hack tech reviewers saying things like, but I mean, like, who even cares if there's like more giggle flips in this? I mean, who even does things on their phone? Like, average consumers aren't gonna do things, blah, blah, blah. But you need to spend the most on a Galaxy Ultra because my affiliate link below. But who's even doing the things? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I trot out that wacky voice, but you all know those videos. And that's how we're educating consumers about what's in their phone. The vast majority of consumers should not own hyper exotic sports cars, right? The vast majority of consumers need sensible, practical vehicles to get their daily lives accomplished. And we're not teaching them that the same holds true for technology. So no, I think we should get new tech every year. But I think we need to do a fundamentally, radically different job of explaining and educating what every year's tech improvements bring to the table. We're setting them up for false expectations. Oh, the cameras now have 200 megapixels. No, they don't. They don't. They genuinely don't. You're going to push the shutter button and you're going to get a 12 MP image. You lied. And the consumer who thought they were getting a better camera is getting kind of fundamentally the same camera experience from Samsung that they've had for roughly the last 5 years. A little better here, a little better there. They would not be able to pick out photos from two different phones with any consistency. But I can show you. There are things you can do on your phone. My daughter is editing movies in LumaFusion. She holds up her tablet and she has her stuffed animals talk, and she's doing shot reverse shot. My daughter's 9. Oh, but who those consumers can't figure? They're too stupid. No, techies lost the plot. The vast majority of this content on TikTok doing like cuts, inserts, green screen, and techies are sitting here going, oh, but average consumers. Anyway. Ron Guido, your next refrigerator now with Intel inside. Again, think about that. Huge missed marketing opportunity. Intel could really be driving that sticker home again. The era of like late 90s, early 2000s, that sticker mattered. You had Intel inside. We can't even do that. And also, it's no one would believe it anymore because AMD just makes a better chip. From Gabaletta, are we talking about the Game Hub emulator app? I have an extended conversation on that on last week's show, and a new video on patreon.com/somegadgetguy with some really good data. Son John, I don't know if it's good. Son John says, Juan with the jokes, good imitation of the shills. Yeah, it's I don't know how else to point it out, but we've seen those videos over and over and over again. The only thing they can talk about in terms of performance is an AnTuTu score. They can't show you an app that actually improves performance. I've got a new chip. I've got this app. I can show you performance. You can do this on your own. Go get an old phone, get a new phone, install 2 apps that make something, get CapCut if you don't want to spend money, and edit one video in CapCut and edit the same video in CapCut and see which does it faster. I do this, and techies are the first people to complain that this isn't really what people are gonna do or care about, or that it doesn't reflect actual performance for average people. But I guarantee you, every single time I show people, yeah, you can just like, you shot this video, now just cut the head and tail. Just trim the beginning and trim the end, and you can send like a clip. Oh, that's cool. That's video editing. You've just edited video. And do you know how I know that that's a major deal? Is because CapCut, not TikTok, not the social media network, the video editing app, CapCut, has been downloaded over 1 billion times on Android. So techies are incorrect. Average consumers edit a lot of video on their phones. Geet Madden. If you hold up 2 phones, I can tell you which one has blue bubbles and which one doesn't. That's what passes for tech education there, Geet. You nailed it. Consumers know that. Will this one wreck my group texts because Apple can't figure out RCS? It's those Android people are the real problem. Yep. Joshua Luther, so true. My daughter doesn't want me to go back to Android because my bubbles will be green. Make her suffer, or get her on anything else like Signal, Telegram. I'd avoid WhatsApp if you can, but if you can't, it's still better than iMessage. Yeah, this is what I want. So Gabaletta was joking like, are we talking about the GameSir Game Hub? I just finished an hour of Hades gameplay on my Z Fold 5 at 1080p 60, and it only used like 15% battery. If getting Hades up and running, it is criminal that Hades is not out on Android. I can't play Hades at 60 frames per second on my Steam Deck with that kind of power draw. You can play an actual PC game on your phone, and it's probably going to outperform the Steam Deck. Oh, but ARM, who's going to, like, gaming on ARM? You need Intel for that. ARM chips can't play games. I tried to load a game on a Surface laptop with an ARM chip, and it didn't play very good. Simon says Hypno. I saw one of our mocked YouTubers now saying that Microsoft got it right with the Surface Duo. If only they'd noticed at the time. Because that's also the other trick. Oh, who wants this innovation? Oh, LG comes out with a feature. No one cares about that. Oh, I'm so sad that LG's gone. Remember when they made the wacky phones? I used to make videos about LG wacky phones. Hacks. Every single one of them. If you couldn't recognize that a phone was cool in the moment, you have no business trying to scrape the audience after the company's gone out of business. No. Uh-uh. Not okay. Yep, Goat V8. I played Arkham Asylum on my 8 Gen 2 handheld and was blown away. I'm so stoked to mess with that app more. And Consumer Compute, just saying, hello. Hello, Consumer Compute. Gabaletta, my ROG Ally can't run it at that resolution and frame per second under 15 watts. Not without FSR and frame gen on Hades. Hades is so easy to run. But no, I'm in the same boat with you because like I was playing it a lot on my Steam Deck. And I mean it's fine. It's a good experience, but it is like kind of crazy. I can make my phone pretend to be a whole other computer on top of being an Android device, and it's still going to use less power, less electricity than playing the game on my Steam Deck. And you got nerds out here. Oh, but I don't think ARM is gonna. I don't. You need like a gaming laptop if you want to game and play games. Thomas, I agree. I used to work for LG. Great phone, great tech, but no one knew about it since they never advertised. I got into wild conversations with LG PR and LG executives. There was a vice president of international LG. What was his official title? Anyway, he was really high up there. This was a long time ago. He had my phone number. We would talk for hours. His time, which was like middle of the night for me, and just still, we never saw any practical application of marketing or messaging. That was their biggest downfall. Every single time they came out with a new tech, eventually it would get adopted by a bunch of other companies. Nope. LG couldn't pat themselves on the back. I pitched them. I pitched them an entire ad campaign built on Life is Good, LG. I know it was originally Lucky Gold Star, but you go in and you just, life is good when you play with friends. Life is good when you listen to your music. Life is good when you shoot better video. And it's super simple. But that concept, you drive home the unique features of the phone and you tie that into LG and their big slogan, life is good. How do you not make that ad campaign? How do you not do that? 15-second spots. Really easy. There's a person in black and white listening to their music, and then they plug their headphones into their Lucky Gold Star phone, and their world turns to color. Life is good when your music sounds better. Give me the monies. I pitched a very similar ad campaign to the folks over at Essential. The campaign was going to be called That's Essential. Someone on just a totally blank, clean white psych, dressed in a suit, no tie. Better battery life. That's essential. Better build materials. I mean, they wouldn't say it that way, but ceramic. That's essential. Real clean, super precise. Like you're making an Infinity car commercial. If you remember the old like late 90s Infinity ad spots and stuff. Anyway, we don't have to talk about me and marketing and all that stuff. Yep, JGJ, LG fly like a G6. Missed that chance. I actually point blanked LG on that one too. Well, I mean, that one's kind of obvious. Yeah, it's super obvious because it would have been a banger. Do it. Obvious works. Anyway. From Juan Carlos, I still have my LG V60 and LG G8. Hard to part with them. They were such good phones. Don't give them up because you're not going to get anything for them. Run them into the ground, and those are incredible media players. Take some of the load off of your new phone, use them as backup devices, but you could spend a lot more on a dedicated audio player and still not beat outright the audio performance on an old LG. So if you got an old LG kicking around or you want to buy like an old LG G8, it's still one of the best media players you can buy. Awesome, just great. Okay, moving on. Someone else already kind of alluded to this. Let me screen share this. Who was it? Was it JGJ or was it Nick? It might have been Nick. Someone correct me. Steam OS is not the problem, but Steam for Chromebook is ending support in 2026. This is written up by Abner Lee over at 9 to 5 Google. After debuting in 2022, the Steam for Chromebook beta will stop working in early 2026. At the time, it was a big Chrome OS effort, but there hasn't been an update in ages. And I think this is one of the reasons why we can see the effect. We're doing such a poor job of educating consumers. A computer is a computer, and a tablet is a tablet, and a phone is a phone. And when you talk to your family and friends, I really do think they believe like all phones are kind of the same. That the fact that an Apple costs so much more than a Samsung, that an iPhone Pro is a $1,000 device and a Galaxy A series is a $500 device, I don't think consumers reconcile that with any kind of difference in performance. They're both phone-shaped things. They both do the same things. And gosh darn it, the Apple is just so much better because it's a Apple. But if you were to tell them, well, you want a car that goes faster, you get a car with a V8. They would go, oh yeah, obviously. Well, doesn't the V8 cost more? Yeah, for sure. It's like twice as many cylinders as a 4-cylinder. Okay. Well, don't you think the more expensive phone would use a V8 instead of a 4-cylinder? Anyway, so the problem is, I actually really liked the idea. And it's sad because I'm playing with this Lenovo, and the MediaTek chip in there has a pretty decent integrated GPU. You should be able to game locally on a Chromebook. It's just never going to be great because Chromebooks are defined by a practicality for students and web browsing and basic daily computing tasks. And that's the big disconnect here. Who's going to spend more on a Chromebook? Chromebook doesn't matter. It's a laptop with a chip. Do you want the more powerful chip? Then you can play games. The more powerful chip costs more monies, though. And this is the fundamental failing of so many of our tech conversations when we do try to broach this with people who are not tech enthusiasts. And so you had this, this really beautiful opportunity. Because the one thing I'm going to credit Chromebooks for, specifically the Pixelbook Go from like 5 or 6 years ago, that kind of got me back into Linux. I was hardcore like Windows. I really liked Windows 8 for tablets. I really liked Windows 10. Like I was there. So it was Windows and Android. That was my ride or die. And then I pick up this Pixelbook and you're like, oh, this laptop is so nice. It is expensive, but it's just genuinely a beautifully built laptop. And I loved the keyboard on it. And the screen was nice. And the battery was pretty good for an Intel-based laptop. I was like, oh, if only I could do more with it. And then I figured out how to do more with it. And the answer was run Linux apps. And like, I went to town. I've got this beautiful Chromebook and I'm firing up Firefox. I don't want to use the Chrome browser. I like Firefox. Linux to the rescue. I'm editing photos in GIMP. What was it? Shotcut? No, it was Kden. Yeah, it was Kden. Kden Live. I'm editing videos. All of a sudden, the performance and the possibilities of this machine just exploded for me. but you needed to spend a little bit more. And that's what's killing me is there are reasons to spend more if you want to. It's not to get better HDRs in your 200 megapixel pictures. And I'm purposely saying picture without the CT in there. The reason to spend more is because you want to do more. But we're selling people this idea of all computers are the same shape, so they must be kind of the same. And all phones are the same shape, so they must be kind of the same. And that's why this fell apart. Who's going to spend time on Steam for ChromeOS if they can't really play games on it? But, you know, you've been sitting there listening to techies say, oh, just buy that $100 gut rot plastic shell student Chromebook because it's a Chromebook, and Chromebooks are all kind of the same. Well, yeah, that's not going to play games. Who even needs more power in their phones? Someone who wants to play games. You want to play games in your phone? You need more performance. This is super stupid basic, but we keep giving consumers this warped idea of what the tech market really resembles. So anyway, Geet Madden, didn't Chrome OS devices run on Linux? Can they not just sudo apt install Steam on it? So now, instead of having the more easily installed app kind of better supported by Google, that's going to be a possible solution. But I would also just say at some point, you look at your hardware, see if you can unlock it, and then, I don't know, just install Linux on an old Chromebook and you're probably better off. I don't know that if you're looking to game, Chrome OS is really the thing. Let me take a drink of coffee here. I just saw the time, and we have several stories that I do want to get to. We're properly in a gadget block kind of frame here, so I've got to stop spending so much time getting indignant. Yeah, Nick, that's true too. Software support matters too. The Steam beta app never left beta, and I think it's funny is like the GameSir Game Hub app. I'm sure is kind of gray area, but I logged into my Steam account in the GameSir app, and I'm installing and playing PC games on my phone, and we never got to that kind of synergy as easily for people to look at a Chrome OS device as a potential gaming device. Oh yeah, I mean, see, Thomas, it's exactly that. You know, you use computer to do computer things, and you use your tablet to do tablet things. Um, it's just sad, just really sad. From Newer, hey bro, why are you not using your Shox Open Meet headset? It's not good? Question mark. So no. I tried a while back, and it wasn't fair. I have my Open Meet right over here. I use my Open Meet a lot for actual meetings and calls and stuff. Right here, this headset is phenomenal. I love my Shox. For some reason, Restream doesn't like it when I play around with the audio inputs that I use. And we had a massive meltdown months ago. For a couple weeks in a row, I was trying these different mics. And I was thinking, like, is there a problem with the mic? Is there a problem with my headset? What's going on? And it was all Restream. And Restream support was absolutely useless. Well, you need to record a 20-minute sample so we can analyze what's going on. Did you try changing your audio settings? And as soon as I can like kind of scope out where I want to go, I'll probably leave Restream because their support was so awful. But for some reason, my Rode mic works great with Restream, and so that's what I'm using. But you're not wrong. The Open Meet is fantastic. The Shox headsets are excellent. They just don't like my streaming setup. Yeah, I'm going to bring this up. This is still on the list. I just want to show it off because I think this is the wrong way to do this. I think this is an evolutionary dead end, and it makes me really sad. I'm a fan of VR gaming. I haven't been doing a lot of it because, excuse me, I don't want to give Facebook any money. I refuse to do business with Oculus. I don't like their terms of service. I don't like how they scrape all of our user data. And I think they are partially responsible for the fall of Western democracy. I feel giving them money is probably a bad thing because then they turn around and take that money and do terrible things to humanity with it. The engineers at Oculus are incredible people, and I'm sure they're passionate about delivering a great product, but unfortunately they're under an umbrella corporation that seems hell-bent on destroying life for everybody but billionaires. So you got to kind of weigh those pros and cons. I'm desperate for Valve's follow-up. I really want to support Deckard. But before that, my last foray into VR gaming was Windows mixed reality headsets. Those also kind of got the shaft, but we might see some progress on a sort of an open driver for Windows mixed reality. From Thomas, how do you feel about the HTC Vive? Is probably the best alternative solution out on the market right now, which is a pretty low bar. The thing that's making me sad is there are companies out there with incredible R&D, incredible potential to make better products, and instead of really trying to make the best mixed reality experience they can, they're just sort of looking at Apple. And that's the worst plan. If you're looking at Samsung, I don't like Project Moonhand. That looks like we just want to copy Apple. And unfortunately, I love this brand, I love this company, but the Vivo Vision, we got a sneak peek at the Vivo Vision. This was written up by ithome.com, and I had to translate it. I believe it was originally in Chinese, from Wang Miao. CCTV Zoo, I do not know how to pronounce that last name. In advanced experience, Vivo Vision headset, double finger, air kneading, easy on top. So that's a clumsy translation of the Vivo Vision also has pinch to select, and that they say it's not very heavy on their face, on their head. And it looks like a Vision Pro. I really think this is a bad way to do this. It doesn't have the screen, which is ludicrously stupid, where you can have like an animated version of your face show from the Vision Pro. But otherwise, it's very similar, where you've got this headset, you've got this big sort of floppy cone, this back headrest that looks real stretchy, and then the battery is separate from the device. So you have this tether, this cable that connects to the side, and it looks like a proprietary cable mount. So if you get a battery, you have to have a proprietary plug. That should be illegal. EU regulators should immediately look at that and say, no, you should not have a proprietary cable to power your headset if the whole point is just it's a soap on a rope battery that then has to live somewhere else. It immediately neuters the mobility and the movement. Everybody's out there complaining like, oh, I used to play on my Oculus, but I can't stand having a cable go to my PC. But you're fine with a soap on a rope magnetic battery. Is so stupid. So I'm really disappointed in this design because it looks like an abbreviation and a shortcut to just copying the Apple headset design. And I feel like Vivo could do this better. Vivo's giving us some of the most disruptive tech in photography. Their work in coprocessors is insane. What Vivo has been able to accomplish with like manipulating images through their own silicon is radical. And this is a consumer-facing thing that looks like an Apple device. And I really wish they had taken any difference in design or counterbalance. Lightweight headset, but like all the stuff on front is balanced by a battery in the back. That is some extra weight on your skull, but I think that actually improves the experience over having a cable dongle out the side, and that can get caught up in your movements. It immediately makes me nervous about what I would use that headset for, how I would use that headset. Am I gonna be playing Beat Saber on something like that and having that cable flopping all over the place? That's not a better VR experience. Apple did not make a good VR headset. They made a good MacBook that sits on your face and works like an iPad. So if you're sitting and you needed your computer to act like another computer, cool. Apple did that great. But it's not the solution that I think we're looking for those of us who really like that VR style. So Thomas, like, again, if you don't want to do business with Oculus, if you don't want to get a Quest and give Facebook your money, the HTC Vive is actually pretty good hardware. But you have to know It's going to be more expensive because it's not subsidized by all of your personal data getting scraped by Facebook to make a profit on every aspect of your home, because those cameras are and microphones are scanning everything. Two, you're kind of locked into a PC gaming and Steam VR experience, so you're going to miss a few exclusives, like you're not going to get Batman, and that's kind of a bummer. I wish Batman weren't locked to Oculus, but that's the price you pay to not be a part of the Facebook ecosystem. I'm hoping that we'll see that update. We'll get a good driver for the mixed reality headsets out there. And then you could play with VR for real cheap. It is a really cheap VR experience. And I don't mean inexpensive. I mean, it's cheap. My Acer is cheap. It's not inexpensive. But then I'm waiting for Deckard. I want to see what Valve's follow-up is. It's looking like it's going to be more powerful than the Quest 3. I think that's gravy. Like, let's just jump there. I'd rather give Steam my money and have my Steam games play in big picture mode or Steam VR. I'm good with that. I'd rather do that. And John is absolutely correct. I assume that the Vivo headset is going to be a China mainland release only. And yeah, that's probably accurate. But if we're going to see any progress in any of our tech, we have to hope more of this stuff will eventually leave China. I wanted to highlight this. This is coming by way of GSM Arena. Just one of their rumors post, and I can't see who wrote it. Dimensity 9500, rumored to improve efficiency by over 40%, deliver 100 frame per second ray tracing. So the article here is actually kind of interesting for 2 points. The chip that's going to be put out by MediaTek this next year looks like it's going to continue the all big core design for the CPU. I'm very anxious about this. There was a rumor that MediaTek might scale back on the Dimensity 9500 and give us 2 big CPU cores and 6 medium-sized cores. To me, that would be a downgrade. Right now, the Dimensity 9400 is the most powerful chip you can put in a phone. It might not always be the best optimized, but it is the most powerful. And the fact that it's got 4 big cores and 4 medium cores gives it a tangible advantage over the Snapdragon in most tests that you can compare CPU performance. So now it's sounding like we're going to get 4 big cores, 1 clocked higher, and 4 medium-sized cores. And if MediaTek continues that, I'm going to be really excited. The GPU performance, if the GPU can stay at roughly the same tier of performance that we have this year, but use substantially less electricity, that'll make MediaTek a lot more interesting for gaming. Right now, I feel like MediaTek can match Qualcomm on a lot of games, but because they're not as well optimized, yes, you're matching the Snapdragon, but you're probably matching the performance at a higher power draw. If developers were really coding, and again, MediaTek doesn't make this easy. MediaTek is also their own worst enemy. But if game developers could properly optimize for Mali and for their chips, for MediaTek chips, then we'd probably see a lot more comparable performance. Performance per watt, anyway. So could be really fun. I think, again, in light of Intel totally collapsing, I'm most excited about what the next laptop chip from Qualcomm is and what the next Chromebook chip from MediaTek is, and that's our Intel versus AMD now. AMD is going to rule for x86, for high-performance desktops, massive workstations, stuff like that, but the consumer-facing stuff is going to get way better if MediaTek and Qualcomm are mixing it up. And then, hopefully in another 10 years, we'll have a company come out and say, hey, you know what, it would be better if we just used RISC? And then we got some good RISC chips. That would be real nice. So Ron Albano, I'm all in on Vivo. Can't wait for the X300 Pro with the Dimensity 9500. It's going to be such a champ because let me tell you who's going to have a hard time is Samsung. So this is also coming by way of GSM Arena, but I'm going to link directly to the Geekbench score. Geekbench scores tell us very little, but this is a very bad Geekbench score. So the Exynos 1680 benchmarked ahead of debut. So a yet-to-be-announced Samsung chipset appeared on Geekbench, revealing its GPU specs. The chip in question is believed to be the Exynos 1680, and it features an Eclipse 550 GPU. The chip appeared with the S5E8865 identifier. It is expected to be based on AMD's RDNA 3.5 microarchitecture, which is also used on the flagship Exynos 2500. So then we look up this OpenCL score, and it's 6,000. Now, that number doesn't mean anything in particular, but like I'm gonna just kind of pull this up. So I've got my Dimensity 9400 here, and do I still have Geekbench installed on this? Let me see. So let me go into history, and if we believe benchmark scores, my OpenCL score, nope, that's my Vulkan. My OpenCL score on this phone is 21,352. Now, Geekbench says their scores are roughly transferable. So like if I look at this number, OpenCL score on an Android device, and I compare that to an OpenCL score on a Windows device, that number should mean something similar. That means the integrated GPU on this phone is more powerful than Intel's Core i9, Intel's 13th gen Core i9 for laptops. The integrated GPU in a Core i9 is less powerful than what's in this phone. And that Core i9 could probably ramp up to like 80 watt power draw in a laptop. And this phone can't do that because it's a phone. So it's hitting this better score at like 12 watts. Now, I don't know if you're a math genius. I'm not a math genius. So it took me a little while to figure this out. But I'm looking at this AMD partnership with Samsung, and these scores, like 6,000 is less than a third the number that I got here. So even though this score doesn't really tell us like how well it's going to play games, it's still real bad. It's even if the only thing that we can draw from this is how well the GPU can run Geekbench as a benchmarking tool, less than a third is real bad. Why would I pick the Samsung GPU over the MediaTek GPU? If you're getting excited for next year's Vivo, stuff like that should make you even more excited. Because even in the mid-range right now, our mid-ranger scores should be over 10K. A mid-ranger chip, do I have anything here on my desk that would qualify as a mid-ranger chip? Let me see. Oh, you know what? I don't know if I don't even know if this is charged. It might not be charged. I might need to jumpstart this phone. I've got like a $200 Indian phone here. Because I know like whatever Samsung's naming convention is, that the Exynos 1600 series is probably less good than the Exynos 2000 chip series, but that's still real bad. Are you totally dead? Oh man, I need to stop letting these phones like completely discharge. Because like now I'm worried I might not even be able to revive it. I don't know what else I might have out here that I can show on camera. See, that's the tricky thing, is if I start holding up phones, I might accidentally break an embargo. Let me see if I can pull up maybe one of my old Vivos. I'm stuck on this one because I really want to try and show you a good demonstration of what these numbers might mean. But Yeah, everything's out of juice. Man, I got to go back and like reset all this. Yep, these are dead too. Dang it. I'll start plugging some stuff in. Maybe by the end of the podcast, if we have a couple extra minutes, I can pull up some other geek benchery. Sorry, I know this is terrible podcasting right now, but I am wildly unorganized and getting back from that road trip. I'm still not fully unpacked. But yes, that's not particularly exciting. Yeah, Nick A is saying the 1680 is their mid-tier devices for like the A series. So you're going up against even a Tensor that should be able to score 10K. Tensor is not great. It's not a good gaming solution. It's the slowest of the premium tier chips, and even in a Pixel A series, it's going to do better than 6. Simon says, "No, this is an X Innos. It is deceased upon arrival. It has joined the choir eternal. It is a former. It's a dead parrot." Moving right along, we can keep this going here. Sony says Xperia is really important to them. Sony chief financial officer will grow very important business, careful, and fans are relieved. I don't think Xperia is really important to Sony, at least not in the way that they're saying it. I I love up to the Xperia 5, the Xperia 1 Mark 5. I I I think Xperias are awesome. I think they're great. I think they're some of the best alternative premium tier devices out there. Unfortunately, what I see Sony doing is trying to emulate a Samsung strategy that isn't really working great for Samsung. What if we just scaled back? We cut back on some of the things that made our phones unique. It would save us costs in making those phones, and then we'd save money, and people will still buy our phones at ever increasing prices. Our phones are still going to keep getting more expensive, but we'll cut back on screen technologies, we'll rework the camera tech, we'll float on camera pieces so that, we don't have to put in the bleeding edge stuff that we give to our competitors, and people will still buy it because it's a Sony. And unfortunately, that's kind of biting them for the Sony Xperia 1 Mark 7. There have been a number of issues with that phone, charging issues, battery issues. It's just not, consumers aren't much impressed. So my feeling is Xperia is on its way out. Eventually, you start looking at the costs of operating a phone division, and you need your stock price to go higher. So you eventually make the real tough CEO decision. It's time for us to let go of this and move on, and the market has spoken. I feel like that's coming soon for the Xperia. You can't sustain a phone business by whittling back on what goes into your phone and charging more for it. And what made the Xperia unique is getting diluted. So for me specifically, like I start looking at camera technologies, and it's the Chinese phones. It's Vivo, it's Oppo, it's Xiaomi, and it's Honor. It's not Sony anymore. The things that made a Sony unique, the competitors have kind of caught up on. If I want good face tracking in my camera app, it's not as good as that really creepy Terminator eye autofocus that the Xperia has, but it's so good that I can use it with a much better camera sensor than what's in the Xperia, especially for the telephoto cameras. So this is the response. They have customers that they actually need to support, and they have carrier business agreements in a couple countries around the world. So Sony can't come out and say, you know what, you actually kind of caught us on this. We're going to let Xperia fail, because they probably have commitments for the next 3 years. But I think after those commitments have expired, I don't think Xperia is long for this world. The solution is to improve the product and spend more on marketing the product. And no executive wants to hear that. If over the next 3 years we show that we can make a better phone and we spend a lot of money telling people about the better phone, we'll have a successful phone business. What executives at these companies want to hear is lay off more people, spend less on making the product, and get more profit. If people keep buying the phone the same way they do today, we can put out a poorer phone and then we'll make more money. Next fiscal quarter, it's going to look great for us. And that's it. So I'm not much encouraged by Sony's response to this, or this reaction with the controversy surrounding the Xperia 1. I think Xperia is probably going to be dead. It's not looking good. Rob Albano, Sony blew it. Update the telephoto for FS. Gabaletta saying, I keep saying this, we've hit parity with ARM chips with traditional x86 ones. The biggest problem is developers not optimizing for ARM chips. And they had to do it for Apple, so performance got better on MacBook. Apple didn't give them a choice. I still think you should have a choice. If you want to put together a monster x86 machine, you should be able to build whatever you want. But developers sitting back here saying, well, I'll support ARM and Windows and Linux when it gets good enough for me to support it. That means I gave my business to DaVinci. It means I gave my business to Affinity. I gave my business to companies that supported the hardware I wanted to use. I moved on. I didn't sit here and wait because Adobe didn't want to support the laptop I wanted to use. I got over it. Actually, it wasn't that hard because I hate using Adobe anyway. John Gao is, I'm so sad and disappointed with the current state of Xperia. Vazikos, Japanese companies are big on saving face. Honestly, a bigger sensor on the telephoto lens would spark interest with enthusiasts. Exactly the people you claim to be reaching out to on the Xperia 1. Those are supposed to be camera enthusiasts. From Thomas Wren is saying OnePlus 12 with Hasselblad. I'm putting OnePlus in the Oppo umbrella. Oppo brokered a deal with Hasselblad. OnePlus benefited from that because they're under the Oppo umbrella. But also, you're right, it's the OnePlus 12. The OnePlus 12 has a better photography experience than the OnePlus 13. From John Gao, plus Sony in general is moving away from a hardware-centric company. A lot of companies seem to be moving away from hardware. So I think, we've got two more. We can do this. We can do this. We've got time. So right now, Samsung news is so hot. Galaxy Z Fold, Galaxy Z Flip, man, we're so hot on all of this that when we talk about Samsung, we've immediately moved on to rumors for next year's phones. See, that's how you know you have a healthy community of real enthusiasts and fans, is because they talk about your product after people receive the product, right? That's how you know. So you don't have just a bunch of ruthless shills who only want traffic and use your brand name and your IP to put rumors and specs and leaks out there. You have a real passionate fan base that talk more about your product when they have it than before it's launched. You can see the biting sardonic cynicism of sarcasm that's just oozing from my lips right now. Because one of the big stories for Samsung is throw away all of your Galaxy S25 stuff. That's garbage now, guys. It's already garbage because you see the S26 is gonna have faster RAM. There you go. That's what is real exciting about tech right now, yeah? See, it's Galaxy S26 Ultra is gonna have 10.7 gigabit per second LPDDR5X RAM. So when your Galaxy S26 Ultra costs more and they get rid of more features from the S25 and the S24, see, it's gonna be good. Because you have faster RAM. Big hot news there, folks. Not One UI 8 ending up on more devices, not, hey, look at all this really great coverage and like real practical experience of using Z Fold and Z Flip. Big top story for Samsung today is next year's phone's going to be better because it has faster RAM. I bet you they still put too little RAM in there. Like, I bet you they're going to stick with 12 gigabytes of RAM, while they're also trying to talk about on-device AI, which you need a lot of RAM to unpack. But here's my tinfoil hat, my conspiracy theory. Qualcomm depends on Samsung, right? They're still one of the biggest customers Qualcomm has. But Qualcomm actually hasn't been doing as good a job of supporting and improving compression speed. You got to go with me on this for just a second. MediaTek made it a big point 2 years ago to really highlight improvements in compression. Compression is not sexy to talk about. I can show you RAR and 7-zip and these like tools that we use to make big files smaller for storage. But in a world of unpacking AI models on mobile devices, compression becomes really important. Taking compressed file and opening that file quickly to work on that file is a very big deal. And from the Dimensity 9200 to the Dimensity 9400, that's where we've seen the biggest leaps in performance for MediaTek. You don't think about this a lot, but your ability to send a video to someone over RCS, it's very likely your phone squishes that video before they send it out. It's a re-render and a compression of that video. That was one of the things that MediaTek chips used to be dog poop awful at doing. You would get like a big 4K video, shoot a 4K video from your phone and try and squish it to 1080p, and you would just watch your performance tank compared to Qualcomm. But with last year's Dimensity 9300, we saw file compression get very fast. Much, much faster on MediaTek. So I bet you this is kind of a little Qualcomm-Samsung synergy. One of the ways that you can also improve that performance is speeding up your memory access. When your RAM gets faster, you can move information through RAM quicker. You can pull information from storage faster, move it through RAM faster, work on that, and then get it back to the user in a more timely fashion. So Qualcomm chips still probably won't catch MediaTek for this new improvement in file compression, but you can kind of make up some of that access in RAM speeds. But I bet you your $1,200, $1,300 Galaxy Ultra is still probably going to come with too little RAM. Everyone was making fun of OnePlus, like, oh, in China they sell a OnePlus with 20 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, because you need lots of RAM when you're unpacking big, local AI models. Anyone? No? We're going to conveniently forget about that because Samsung's at, oh, here's my new affiliate link for the Galaxy S26 Ultra, guys. So when you buy your new Galaxy, because I know you're not going to shop anyone else, you can click on my affiliate link. And I was just totally blown away. Samsung's people say they're getting boring, but not me because I make all my money on affiliate links. I mean because their phones are great. I don't make a lot of money on affiliate links, by the way. If you guys want to support the channel, you can also shop through affiliate links. I want to wrap this up. Sorry, I'm like, again, I'm trying to keep this fun and lighthearted, but I think I've failed, and it's all about being bitingly cynical because now we're finally to the Google Pixel 10 Pro, and I'm really angsty about what my strategy is going to be. I think I'm just going to sell off the rest of my Pixels before their batteries explode. and then maybe trade in for a Pixel 10 Pro. I just don't think I'm going to do much else with Pixel. I just because I don't cover Samsung, I need something else in the United States market. But I'm looking at the Pixel 10 Pro, and I'm confident that the phone I use as my daily driver, my OnePlus 13, is going to stomp on the Pixel 10 Pro for every computing, gaming enthusiast experience that it has to offer. And that the Pixel 10 will bring a slightly better desktop mode that is still not as good as DeX, and it's going to bring better call screening for the few spam calls that do make it through on my OnePlus 13, and then that's going to be it. It's going to be a poorer performer. It's going to have a worse radio reception. It's going to have a smaller battery that charges slower. The cameras are going to be a nice, fun, competitive battle, but the OnePlus 13 is going to be so much cheaper than the Pixel 10 Pro. There is no win for Google on the Pixel 10 Pro, and I'm very anxious because it feels like I'm going to end up buying a phone just so I can pan it. And I don't want to do that. I understand that people love getting like that conflict and that fight in their videos, but it's not fun to produce. It makes me feel acidy and toxic. I don't like pointing that stuff out to people because ultimately I want people to like the tech they buy, but I feel most people buy tech and then go, I like the brand, so I must like this phone. And because I spent money on it, that was the right thing to buy. And they don't want to face the sort of analysis or consequences of their actions, so they just kind of become the Kool-Aid drinker for that brand. Oh, but average consumers, what about the average? Won't average people love the Pixel 10 Pro? No, they shouldn't. Because it's going to be $1,000 phone. Average consumers should not shop above average prices. They should avoid anything above $500 because they're not getting the benefit of a $1,000 device. And you can't tell me it's about, well, you need to buy the most powerful chip so you can get your Android updates. Because entry-level phones haven't changed significantly in performance or power over the last 5 years. And Android is coded, and Android app developers are looking at supporting the widest range of consumers who are all shopping below $500. The $1,000 market is still about 10%, maybe a little bit more now because Samsung is squeezing so hard anyone who might want a phone under $1,000, which is utter garbage. But that's not a great business model. That's not a sustainable business model. So I have rambled on way too much. If I fire this up now, one EV leaks. I don't know if it sounds like a newcomer to the scene to me. I don't know that anyone's followed up on this guy. This is a Twitter account, an Evan Blaze, Balas. I don't know who this is, but we've got these 3 little videos here, and they're the leaked looks at what is going to be the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. So I'll go ahead and show this here on the camera. And it opens. Whoa, we've never seen. And it's doing that thing that I hate where the foldable is just floating in space. 3 years ago, I wrote an editorial about how folding phones are misrepresented to consumers. We do not show people opening them and using them. So there is no expectation from consumers as to how should you use your folding phone. It's just this CG mock-up of a butterfly opening its wings, floating in space, free of any human interaction. It is soulless. It is misrepresenting the product, or at least just not representing the product. It doesn't tell you anything about the product except that it opens. We've had folding phones for 7 years now. This isn't novel. This isn't blowing anyone's mind. People have seen them. They're choosing not to buy them because they're significantly more expensive than slate phones, and for the price of a folding phone, I could probably get a really nice phone and a really nice tablet and save a little cash. So this is the big news, this is the big leak. Now we have a look at the Pixel opening. Pixel 10 Pro Fold. Here, ooh, let's watch it again. Here's a camera bar and the two panels split open and it opens. And now look, it's a square tablet, sort of. And so we also have a video. Here, let me switch to the next. Come on. So here's another just video. It's a Pixel 10 Pro. Look at that camera bar. I guess those are buttons. You like buttons? And it's metal. Ooh, Pixel 10 Pro. And it looks exactly the same as the Pixel 9 Pro. And I said this before a couple weeks ago. And hold on just one second. Does anyone want to explain what I was doing to Abraham? Anyone in the chat, just explain what I was doing in being sardonic and sarcastic. Anyone want to give him the /S on what I was saying? I mentioned this a while back. Where is my Pixel 9 Pro? So I've got my Pixel 9 Pro in my Peak Design case, and I'm really thinking like this is the last Pixel I'm gonna kind of try to live in and really show stuff off. And I never realized this on the Pixel 9. My SIM card has lived almost exclusively in the OnePlus 13. Anything that I would care to do on a mobile device has just been better on the OnePlus 13, and especially like the daily practical lifestyle stuff. I'm not talking about editing video and playing games. I'm talking about I wake up in the morning and I didn't plug my phone in and it's down to 20% battery, so I plug it in for 15 minutes and I have a whole day of battery ready to go. And I can't do that on a Pixel 9 Pro. That thing, average consumers are gonna care about the features. Average consumers don't care if they can play PC games. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the thing that most consumers would care about. This phone will last me 2 days on a charge, and when I need to charge it, it charges in minutes, not over an hour, to get back to a useful charge state. So I keep picking up the Pixel 9 Pro thinking like, hey, this is, you know what, I'm finally gonna do a video, let's talk about this. Nope, you know what? It's just better if I use my OnePlus 13. Hey, I got some new earbuds. You know what I wanna do is show off these new earbuds. Oh, no, they use Qualcomm Snapdragon sound. So I don't have full support for that on my Pixel. The best quality from these earbuds gonna be from my OnePlus 13. So the big video that I put out that does reference the Pixel 9 Pro was Google finally improving their desktop mode. I got to use the Pixel for that. That's it. Anything else and the OnePlus 13 stomps on the Pixel 10 Pro. I want to show you 8K video. Nope, I've got to upload that to the cloud on the Pixel 9 Pro because Google wants me to spend more on cloud. So there's one other one in here, and again, I don't think it's going to blow anyone's mind. I don't really think there's news here, but here's the new Pixel Watch. Whoa, look at that. It's still that rounded stone look that my wife had to put a bumper shield on to change the shape of the watch. But it's the Pixel Watch 4, which looks exactly the same as the Pixel Watch 3, which looked exactly the same as the Pixel Watch 2. And I want to be more lit up, but I'm not getting better technology. See, I want to spell this out because if you catch parts of my commentary, people love to say like, oh, well, you're just a hater, you're just a shill. You must make a lot of money by criticizing companies like Apple, Samsung, and Google. And I can guarantee you, there's not a lot of money to be made in North America when we have so little competition to not cover Apple, not cover Samsung, and then criticize Google. There's no money there. I'm not making money on that. I want these products to look the same, but get better. So I'm good if this Pixel 9 Pro stays looking exactly the same for the 10 Pro, the 11 Pro, 12 Pro. I genuinely do not care about the outer aesthetic, but what I want are the camera sensors to get better, and the processor to get better, and the GPU to get more powerful, and the radio is a big problem on a Pixel, because let me tell you where a lot of your energy efficiency just vanishes, is when you're trying to connect to cell towers, and I can get 6 or 8 decibel better reception on my OnePlus than on my Pixel, especially when you live out in the suburbs. That means my phone is working more efficiently, isn't working as hard to keep a stable data connection, and I get better battery life. Something we think should matter to people. So, if I got all of those things on the Pixel 10, I would be really excited. But I don't think that's what we're going to get. I think we are going to get a slightly better CPU. Going from Samsung to TSMC immediately is going to bring some benefits, but we have the same radio. I bet you the camera sensors are going to be very similar. I'm still hoping that we'll see an upgrade for the telephoto sensor so that we can get macro shots from the telephoto sensor on a Pixel. That would be a nice upgrade. That would be a nice perk. But we've had the same general camera experience on the Pixel 9 Pro as we had on the Pixel 6 Pro. It has not changed fundamentally from 6 to 7 to 8 to 9. Whereas OnePlus has demonstrably gotten better from OnePlus 10 to 11 to 12, and then 12 to 13 was a bit of a slight downgrade if you like taking pictures of things close up. But still, it's been really disappointing watching Google tread water, and I want to see them get better. And that's not what I think is going to happen here. So I think Google missed the boat. I think Google missed a huge opportunity. We should have gotten a Pixel 8 Part 2. This is the 10th Pixel. This is Pixel 10. Do we remember what Apple did with iPhone X? That was the biggest change that we'd ever seen to their design, to their aesthetic, their capabilities, their form factor. They got rid of the home button, no more bezels, stupid notch, but it changed. And like if I hold this up, there's not a fundamental change, but here's my Pixel 8. Let me get my Pixel 9 out of its case. So Google should have held on to this form factor, this build. This is the Pixel 8. You hold on to this for the Pixel 9, and you've got the older rounded bar. You've got kind of the rounded sides on the back. The front screen is flat, so we got that part right. The Pixel 8 doesn't have curved glass on the front of the phone. But then when you're changing up the chip, you might be changing up a camera sensor. This is where you jump from Pixel 9 to Pixel 10. And then you make a whole bunch of noise. The design has been refined and it's more durable. The chip is now made better and it's more power efficient. The performance, it's going to be better for gaming. Look at all of these things that we brought to the table, and we brought this new form factor. Isn't this really exciting? Pixel 10. That's the big leap. No, we're getting kind of a retread. And I think a lot of stuff is going to coast. A lot of stuff is going to be kind of the same. And it's going to look the same. So I don't even get the visual refresh. I don't even get that to talk about. I'm not looking forward to doing coverage on Pixel 10. It's maybe a kindness that the PR companies tried to burn techies so bad on hashtag Team Pixel, because there's not much there. The 10th Pixel is going to be kind of a whiff and a shrug. Sorry, I didn't want to do all that, but Georgie, yeah, 8K video boost. Blah, blah, blah. Georgie saying 8K video still by video boost. Gabaletta, I can't even transfer 8K video to hardly anyone, especially to iPhones, from my Xiaomi 14 Ultra without having to use an external drive because of the ludicrous file sizes. Well, actually, the file sizes on 8K video have gotten really good with HEVC compression. When you think about how big that is in terms of pixels, it's been pretty crazy. From Goat V8, I've been watching reviews of the original Pixel Fold lately, and every single reviewer says that they love the passport design. Why did they do away with that? Because manufacturing. They're only saying it because that's what it was. You see, don't you understand? Someone who is in deep with Made by Google and the Google PR side of this is always going to say, hey, whatever Google did, that's what I like. It's great. I love that they went with this other form factor. It's different than the Galaxy, but it really works for me. And then they change it, and you're going to hear, yeah, I know I liked the other one before, but like what they're doing here is really interesting, and it really works for me. And then they're going to change it again, and they're always going to lean on, well, whatever Google did is the thing I like, and use my affiliate code to buy your Pixel, and I'll make money on it. Because they're not consistent in their reviewing. I pointed to my Duos, and I liked that form factor. And I liked the first Pixel Fold form factor. And I really haven't done a whole lot else with other foldables. Like the OnePlus Open, I think, was kind of the best version of that. You can get a OnePlus Open, it'll still probably be more powerful with better battery life, better camera performance, and faster charging than the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. That's how far behind Google is. And if the OnePlus Open can get this Android 16 desktop mode, then that eliminates one of the only remaining advantages of the Pixel 10 Pro. And the OnePlus Open is old. DTNL, the iPhone Fold looks funny. Joshua, Jimmy Fire Dragon is saying, I think they're going to get 30-watt wired charging. I'm sure they will. And again, the OnePlus Open was 90 watt. Someone please correct me. I can't remember. JGJ is saying LDAC support, question mark. Yeah, the Pixel has LDAC support, but it only has basic aptX. And then they're doing this weird thing, like your Pixel buds are technically AAC. So again, the synergy of the best buds for your Pixel are using Apple's codec and support. They have a proprietary chip in there to give you better, to give you a better experience. They're fighting against Qualcomm, and I understand they don't want to do business with Qualcomm. Totally get it. But if you get any other earbuds, aptX Adaptive is pretty good. And the Pixel doesn't have full support for aptX HD and aptX Adaptive. DTNL. Honestly, I am hyped for the Pixel 11 Pro Fold. We got to start getting those rumors out now. Because you see, the news is already cooked on Pixel 10. All the interest in that is already kind of fallen off a cliff. So now we got to get those tasty, hot Pixel 11 rumors out. Just like Samsung. Now that the Z Fold is out, let's talk about the Z Fold. Oh wait, no one cares about the Z Fold now that it's out? You're right. Galaxy S26 will have faster RAM. Ron Guido. All of that and a charger in the box for the OnePlus Open. From Thomas. Is a weenie competition. This pushes the boundaries of the device and what people can do with that device, but we spend so much time worrying about what your neighbor is doing, you end up more copying them rather than showing your innovations and what makes you better. I've been screaming about that since like the glory days of LG. An LG commercial would come out and they would show like Google Assistant. You know what you can do on your new LG is you can say, take a selfie, like you can do on any other Android phone. Where was the commercial that showed you a visual representation of the quad DAC, something that made your phone so much better than any other competing device. And we never got that commercial. And now Google, Apple, and Samsung are all copying each other because they know they've got North America locked up. And as long as they just spend the most on marketing, they don't have to worry about other consumers in other regions getting hip to all of the differences that these other devices might bring. But that's why when you have a market that isn't dominated by carrier sales, Pixel might be making some progress, but they're not outpacing Vivo, Xiaomi, Oppo. Oh, no, 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 no. Google sales numbers are getting stomped on by the top 3 Chinese manufacturers. And when you really look at those device comparisons, it's pretty easy to see why. In another market, an Oppo can eviscerate a Pixel. My OnePlus 13 is a better phone than Google's most expensive phone. And it's significantly cheaper. What is the price on a OnePlus 13 right now? OnePlus.com/US. Like this is what we're talking about here. My Pixel 9 Pro is an $1,100 phone, and right now I can buy a 16 gig of RAM, 512 gig of storage, OnePlus 13 for $850. No trade-ins. This is just a straight up sale. And if I want to trade in another phone, I could probably knock another couple $100 off that. So in what world does my 128 gig Pixel 9 Pro XL, which costs $1,100, compare to my 512 gig $850 OnePlus 13? The one main advantage being that better call screening. You know what? For $200 difference, I'll take 4 times more storage. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. There's a $200 difference because it's $200 cheaper and I get 4 times more storage. That's the game we're playing because Google and Apple and Samsung spend the most on marketing. They're not out there trying to build better devices. They're trying to get you to pay more for kind of the same experience you've had for the last 5 years. And I really want to be more excited about a Google chip built by TSMC. I really want to see what that can do. And I really just don't think there's going to be much there. So I don't know. I'm probably going to put it out on the Patreon. I kind of need traffic, and that's stupid. But I'll end up making videos saying like, hey, yeah, if you like what a Pixel does, I would highly recommend just getting a Pixel 10, not a 10 Pro. If you need the bigger Pixel, yeah, you're kind of stuck. You've got to get the Pixel 10 Pro XL. It's going to cost you $1,100, and maybe they'll bump up to 256 gig of storage, half what's in my OnePlus 13. But all around, if you think you care about tech and not just a couple googly software bits, there is no tech win on the Pixel. There isn't. Not a single point do I pick up those 2 phones and think, man, you know what? I left the house with my OnePlus 13. I really wish I had that Pixel 9. I really wish I had that Pixel 9 Pro cooking my pocket right now and battery life plummeting and taking forever to charge for kind of the same general camera performance. Man, sure wish I had that Pixel. Oh no, I got an extra spam call. Darn. Boy, I'm sure glad I spent $200 more for 1/4 the storage. And I got my Pixel 9 with me. Has never happened. And I don't know how to get that across to people because we do not educate consumers on what these differences really look like. We just say, oh, don't you want an Apple phone? Apple are the best. Oh, don't you want a Google phone? It's like an Apple phone for Google. It's like the iPhone of Android. That's it. That's what passes for tech education in the United States right now. And it doesn't have to be that way because we can look at every other market throughout Europe where people actually have to buy phones directly. And there's this healthy and vibrant market for mid-ranger phones because that experience is better for what those consumers really want, for what they really need. Google's missed this incredible opportunity to do something special, and the Pixel 10 is going to be kind of an afterthought, even, even though it could potentially shake things up. I'm repeating myself now, so it's time to kind of put a pin in this one because I really do have to get going in literally 5 minutes. Show went long, but it wasn't a 3-hour show. Let me take a quick sip of water here. So Geet Madden saying, I agree with you, but the iPhone X was not the 10th iPhone because of all the S devices. Sorry about being pedantic. Point taken, though. But that's just it. It was the sort of the 10th iteration. It was the number 10 meant something. X, right? The S devices were exactly what Apple sold them as. It was actually kind of one of the best eras of Apple design. We took the iPhone 5, and then we refined it, and now you have the iPhone 5S. Yeah, but the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 5 would not be confused as being the same phone. But Apple lost that when they went to the iPhone 6, because the iPhone 6, the iPhone 7, and the iPhone 8 were all derivative. They were all the same phone, literally down to the PCB, literally down to the internal components. You can pull parts out of an iPhone 6 and put it in an iPhone 8, and it still functions. So, yeah, it's not technically the 10th, but you kind of, that cuts both ways. From Juan Carlos, $300 credit, and I don't want to spend it on the Pixel 10. Gabaletta, but Juan, the Pixel 10, it's going to have MagSafe. Whoa, because your phone, the Google's grand design here was, how can we make this even more like the iPhone? If you pick the Pixel 10 up with your fingers, will it be indistinguishable from an iPhone? Do we have the MagSafe? Now it's even more like an iPhone. From Jimmy Fire Dragon, I think it might have been 65 watt for the OnePlus Open. And charging speed. Oh no, you were right. It was 67 watts. I had that wrong. It still came with the same charger. It was still the same 80 watt charger, but it was only 67 watts. Oh, and then he double checked it. Yes, you're correct. And I just wanted to see, is this finally, oh, so it's at 30%. I'm going to try and boot this up. Oh, I've got 3 minutes. We can do this, folks. I don't think I ran a Geekbench on that. Anyone else? Anyone else on? Let's see. Oh, I don't think I ran a Geekbench on that one either. Darn it. So my Vivo V, my other Vivo V. Oh, there's a system update. That's good. Oh, did I run a Geekbench on this one? So this is... Oh, but this is like an entry level. No, that doesn't support my point. So never mind. I'll have to look something up. But a 6,000 OCL score, not OpenCL score is not great. One more, and let me just see. This Lava is probably going to have a really low graphics score too, if I even ran one. GPU. Yeah, it's 3,000. So yeah, I was really hoping I could show like a $200 phone that beat that Samsung, but for a mid-ranger chip, I guess 6,000 isn't terrible, but it's not great when you can buy an older premium phone that'll stomp on that AMD collaboration. Anyway, so Bradley, we don't know yet. Bradley saying, I don't like that Google downgraded the Pixel 10 sensors just to put a Tele. The issue I have there is if you talk about what an average consumer wants in photography, that highly processed software effect works really well with less expensive sensors. It's actually fine. From the Pixel 4 had that 1 over 2.5 inch type sensor. If you have a highly processed software processed image, you can get away with using a cheaper sensor. The problem is when you use better sensors, you still have this really heavy-handed processing approach that kind of wrecks the image if you wanted to do something specific with it. So when I pick up a Vivo or I pick up a Xiaomi, I want something out of that image. I, as a human, have an expectation for the image. But if I try to do the same thing on a Pixel, my image on the expensive phone looks about the same as the same image shot from a cheaper phone. It actually works in the opposite direction. You spend more and more and more and more, but the software is kind of crushing everything down to this sort of generic HDR sameness. And you can't say, oh, but you can just shoot manual, because the phone doesn't let you. The Pixel 9 Pro lies about its RAW files and doesn't give you actual manual controls. It's still software autopilot. It looks kind of like what your ISO and shutter speed would look like, but it's really doing all that computationally. It's not an actual image. So I get people saying like, oh, they're going to make the Pixel 10 worse than the Pixel 9, but that's kind of where it doesn't matter. The A series and the number, it's all just kind of generic HDR sameness. Not generic, it's kind of all pixely HDR sameness. My problem is when I do get better hardware on the Pro phones, I don't get the benefit of that better hardware because the software is tuned for the lowest common denominator point and shoot average consumer, and I have to go to another app. So if I'm going to go to another app, why wouldn't I go to another phone and get even better camera hardware than the upgrade from a Pixel 10 to a Pixel 10 Pro? That's my dilemma. Explaining all of that means nothing to even techies because they don't actually understand what's in their phones. You still have people writing articles, this phone has a 200 megapixel lens. Like they can't even get the terminology right. So how are we supposed to educate techies so that techies can educate their family? You've got techies walking around and go, oh, but does that have the 200 megapixel lens? You need a 200 megapixel lens. And then I just want to shake them. I just want to. So, I need to go. JGJ is correct. I'm now maybe over time. So, folks, fun stuff coming out. Hopefully some Chromebook. So hopefully some more mini PC, some gaming stuff. That big video, I'm really going to need help sharing that video, talking about GameSir PC gaming emulation. I think we're overdue a good performance conversation in Android, and Geekbench scores and Antutu scores don't get it done. So it needs support. If you see good content, you need to share the good content. And if you're seeing people with crappy hot takes, you need to ignore them. People share that instead. And, oh, but I'm calling that person out for a lazy hot take. No, you're giving them more viewership. You're giving them more attention. But then TK will come out with this awesome video and they're like, oh, good job, TK. I thumbed up it. I didn't share it. I mean, I liked the video, but, you know, couldn't be bothered to like show anyone else. So, yes, more coming soon. And lots of unhinged ranting too. There's a really good rant in that Game Hub video that I'm about to put out. But also hit me up. If you're on the Patreon, patreon.com/somegadgetguy, I'm going to put out a post just asking for strategy. What do we want to do with the Pixel 10 Pro? I don't want to have to buy a phone just to poop on it. But that might be what we got to do. And I hate that so much. So everybody, I hope you have a fantastic week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I want you to take care of yourselves. Let me be a good example of taking care of your mental health so that you can keep being a good tech neighbor for your family and friends. If nothing else from this podcast, I think it should be abundantly clear. Consumers don't know that they need help on this stuff, and they're being educated by the marketing departments of trillion-dollar corporations. Do you think they're really getting the best support? Do you think they're really being offered the best solution for their needs and their budgets? Or do you think a lot of people around you are being taken advantage of? This stuff matters. We live our lives out of it. And it's people who are at least intellectually curious are going to be the ones that can really move the needle on helping people. It's the folks in this chat. So I'll catch you back. Be safe. Take care. I love you all. I'll see you next week.